There are over 400 brands, but out of all these brands, only a handful become household names, creating unforgettable and iconic looks, such as Chanel's tweed outfits, Vivienne Westwood's punk aesthetic and plaid prints, and Christian Dior's bar suit. Many artists here on YouTube that I follow will recreate these outfits for themselves without having to pay a ridiculous price. And I will not be doing that. Instead, I'll be designing a unique look that I think would fit into one of these fashion houses. However, I'll be doing no research and only going off of basic knowledge, starting with Gucci. The difficulty of this project can vary depending on how much I already know about the brand. I know nothing about Gucci other than their three main colors being brown, green, and red, and of course their logo. But other than that, I have no idea what other signatures Gucci has. And I could have made it easier on myself by just using those three main colors, but I decided to make it unnecessarily harder for myself. So, because I'm not doing any research and therefore don't have a reference to go off of, I am instead going to be basing my design off their perfume bottles. I don't know why, but these bottles give me an 80s vibe. Don't ask me why, that's just the vibe that I get from this bottle. So I went onto Pinterest and saved a bunch of 80s fashion to get a feel of what was popular back then, because surprisingly, I was not alive nor a thought in my parents' eyes during the 80s. I don't want to go full 80s, but rather I want to get the feel of 80s with a modern twist. So I went to Joann's and spent so much money on this project. So, because I'm basing my design off of the perfume bottle, I want to follow the general theme of the bottle. So, there's purple, pinks, greens, yellows, and oranges. So, when I went to Joann's, I saw this fabric and I thought it was perfect. Yes, it is a very in your face pattern, but I feel like a lot of patterns during the 80s were like that. They're very bright, colorful, and not crazy looking, but like very loud. I also got orange fleece fabric, and I also got this lavender corduroy fabric. Now, if you're wondering why I got so much fabric, it's because this is going to be a three piece. This is going to be the pants, the coat, and the shirt. Born March 28, 1881, in Florence, Italy, Guccio Gucci had some exposure to leather goods due to his father being a moderately successful leather craftsman and miller who came from a long line of leather craftsmen. Despite this, Guccio at first did not want to be part of the family trade. Instead, he would move to London in his early teens and land a job as a busboy at the Savoy Hotel, eventually working his way up to the position of maitre d'. While working at the hotel, however, he took notice of the luggage of the high-profile clients that would stay there. From this, he was inspired to create luxury leather baggage for the rich and famous, hence the start of the Gucci brand. Gucci started out manufacturing saddles and saddle bags for horse riders. However, the demand for such goods started to decline due to the rise of the automobile. He pivoted to selling handbags, gloves, belts, and shoes. The most recognizable pieces at the time were their floral print and loafers. In 1901, he married Ada Cavelli and had 6 children: Grimelda, Enzo, Aldo, Vasco, Rodolfo, and Ugo. Aldo, the oldest, would have a significant role in the success of Gucci. He designed the iconic double G emblem that we all know today, and Guccio made the signature interconnected diamond pattern on dark brown and tan background, known as the Demente pattern. Despite the success of the brand, internal struggles arose. Aldo's son Paolo left the company in 1980 to start his own fashion label under the name Paolo Gucci, leaning heavily on the brand's 1966 floral prints for his own collection. However, Paolo was served lawsuits forbidding him from using the Gucci name. Following that legal dispute, Aldo was persecuted in the US for tax evasion, in which Paolo testified against him. He pleaded guilty to non-payment of $70 million of tax money and 1 year of imprisonment. The family quarrels continued when in 1983, Rodolfo's son Maurizio took leadership of the brand after the death of his father. Under his rule, he completely removed Aldo and his children from the company, forcing them to sell their shares. Aldo accused Maurizio of forging his father's signatures on documents that would give Maurizio half of the company's shares. Gucci tried to keep up appearances as a successful company, but their reputation began to take a nosedive because of the internal fighting and because Maurizio lacked product design ability and business knowledge compared to his uncle Aldo. After much arguing and bad decisions, the Gucci heirs were no longer part of the Gucci empire. The Gucci brand was in disrepair and many believed there was no coming back. However, the legacy of Gucci would be saved by a then 29-year-old fashion designer named Tom Ford. Born in 1961 in Austin, Texas, Ford was originally studying art history at NYU, but got sucked into the world of fashion through the social scene. In an interview, Ford recalls a time when he was invited to a party that was attended by Andy Warhol, who then invited Ford to Studio 54. Ford decided to drop out of NYU to pursue an acting career where he landed a couple of national advertising campaigns, which then turned into a love of filmmaking and a second career where he started his own production company Fade to Black in 2005. Ford enrolled in an architecture course at Parsons, but quickly switched to pursue a career in fashion. He was able to secure a position as a design assistant to American designer Cathy Hardwick. He worked for her for only a short period of time before being appointed by Mello in 1990. This meant he had to move to Milan, Italy to work for a fashion label that many people believed would be a thing of the past. Ford soon became the creative director of Gucci and quickly pulled the brand out of its decline. Ford's designs brought a risque and hypersexual style inspired by his time at Studio 54. As time went on, his designs became more revealing, with models being almost naked. His advertisements were the same, featuring big-name models half-naked acting out sexual behaviors. So, I have the pants on, and they are 95% done. All I have to do is hem them. However, I ran into a slight issue. It's not like a fitting issue or a problem that I would have to start this whole pant all over again, but rather, it's the closing of the pants. The clasp to close the pants is on the side instead of it being in the front with like a zipper or a button. And I'm using a pattern packet that is from the 90s, and I asked my mom, and apparently this feature was common in pants for them to have like closures on the side. I've never owned pants that have closures on the side. All the pants that I have zippers and buttons on the front. The closure of the pants being on the side is such an awkward position for me because I have to reach my arm like back here and bring it to the front, which kind of like tires out my shoulder. And on top of that, I can't see if the hook is going into the slot that it needs to. So I kind of have to feel for it or use a mirror and hope that it's in the right spot and I got it. And I've been trying to close these pants for like, I don't know, like 2 minutes. And I feel like that is a minute and 30 seconds longer than it should take to close pants. Okay, so I managed to close the pants, but my arms and my shoulders hurt so you have to engage like what is this? Your bicep? I think this is your bicep. You have to engage your biceps to force the hook and the eye close enough to each other to get the hook into the slot to close the pants. And that in itself is a workout because my arms hurt. But besides that, the pants fit well. It is a bit tight in the waist, but I don't mind that. That's kind of the look I'm going for. The pockets are nice. The pants feel nice. They're not tight in any way, shape, or form. All I have to do now is hem them and then get started on the shirt. So I'm making a slight modification to the shirt. That modification being the cuff of the sleeves. Because on the pattern packet, the cuffs are an elastic band, and I think that's ugly. So instead of an elastic band, I'm going to replace it with an actual sleeve cuff. Ford would push the boundaries of fashion advertisements, rivaling other ads from other fashion houses. The hypersexual nature of these ads were so controversial that they were banned in the UK. Despite the criticism, Ford's risque and alluring ads increased the appeal of the Gucci brand. But in 2004, Tom Ford announced his departure from the brand after 14 years. His decision to leave Gucci was abrupt, as it was believed he would take over as CEO after Domenico De Sole retired. After his sudden departure, Ford started his own label in his own name, which to this day is a huge success. After Ford left, there was a space for a new head creative, and that spot was filled by an unknown designer by the name of Frida Giannini. Frida Giannini was born in Rome, Italy in 1972 and took over as head designer after Ford left. Her inspiration for her designs was David Bowie, La Dolce Vita, and Breakfast at Tiffany's. She studied at the Academy of Costume and Fashion in Rome and joined the Italian fashion house Fendi in 1997. She was just 24 years old when Ford brought her to Gucci, working as head designer for handbags and accessories. But after Ford left, she was promoted to head accessories along with John Ray, who was in control of menswear, and Alessandra Ficcinetti, who oversaw women's wear. But in 2005, Ficcinetti left Gucci, leaving Gianni to take over menswear, women's wear, store design, and all advertising and communication, giving her almost complete control of the brand. Where Ford brought sex appeal to Gucci, Giannini focused on rediscovery and tradition. In doing this, Giannini revived the 1960s floral print. This was a success with the clientele. Okay, so the shirt and pants are done, and the last piece to this outfit is the coat. And I'll be using this orangey red fleece fabric that I got from Joann's, and since they're out of business now, Joann's, if I mess this up, I can't go back there and get this fabric again, so let's hope everything goes well. I also got a lining for the coat. Her consistent use of the floor print cemented its importance to the brand that would continue even after Giannini left Gucci. She designed iconic bags such as the Gucci Sama and the Jackie. However, her runways were less than desirable. Fashion commentators said that her collections were unimaginative, underwhelming, and lacked cohesion. Giannini's departure from Gucci was also abrupt, but not as pleasant as Ford's. She had started a romantic but scandalous relationship with the then CEO of Gucci, Patrizio DeMarco. This relationship was heavily scrutinized and caused problems within the brand. Because of the backlash, Giannini and DeMarco had to leave the brand, DeMarco being forced to leave. This sudden removal of the couple left a collection unfinished a week before the 2015 menswear show. There was panic and chaos, Gucci was struggling and their sales had plummeted, and there was no creative director to finish the menswear line that had to be completed in a week. But the one to take on this daunting task and save Gucci from certain doom, reigniting people's interest in the brand with his whimsical designs, was an unknown designer named Alessandro Michele. Born in Rome in 1972, Alessandro Michele studied costume design at Rome's Academy of Costume and Fashion, but he credits his parents who inspired his unique and eccentric style. He first worked for Fendi, where he studied under the direction of Karl Lagerfeld until he was invited to work at Gucci by Tom Ford in 2002. After Giannini's distasteful departure, he stepped in to complete the collection in just 5 days. A few days later, he was promoted to design-in-chief of Gucci, and a month later, he made his official debut with his women's wear show, which was a massive success. Michele's designs were eclectic and slightly tacky with a nod to vintage glamour. Most notably, his clothing was non-gender specific. Famously, Jared Leto showed up to the 2019 Met Gala wearing a red Renaissance-style evening gown holding a replica of his own head. One of the best decisions Michele ever made was associating the brand with a younger generation and street fashion. This decision boosted the company's profits, at one point surpassing Louis Vuitton. In 2022, Alessandro Michele left the brand. His time at Gucci remains as one of the most memorable eras next to Ford. A designer named Demna is now the head designer at Gucci, previously working at Balenciaga as creative director. Only time will tell what he will bring to the Gucci brand. Okay, so review time. I'm going to start with the pros and cons of this outfit. But I'm going to start by saying overall, it looks great. The pants look great. The shirt is great. The coat, on the other hand, is questionable. From afar, you might not be able to tell, but there are so many issues going on with this coat. Starting with the process of just making this coat. I don't know what happened, but my machine, for some reason, just did not like this fabric. I was under the impression that this is a fleece fabric. I went to Joann's, I was in the fleece section of Joann's, and picked out this fabric. However, I'm starting to think this isn't actually fleece. I think what might have happened is that someone went into like the felt section of Joann's, picked this up thinking that they're gonna get it, and maybe they found a different fabric that was better, and they just set it down in the fleece aisle. And because Joann's was going through bankruptcy and all their stores were closing, no one there bothered to put the fabric back where it originally belonged. While I was in Joann's, I had two fabric choices. One was a true orange color, while the other was this one, an orangey red color. And the texture was a little different. The true orange fabric was more stiff, while this one was a bit more, I guess flimsy is the best word. And I went for this one because the orangey red better complemented the orangey red splotches on the shirt. But now I'm starting to regret that because how awful it was to make this coat. Another issue that I have with this coat, which is completely my fault, is the lining. I love the lining. The lining looks great. However, I did not use my pinking shears, which are my zigzag shears, to prevent the amount of fraying that the lining produced. And now there's just a bunch of loose threads coming off the coat or coming off the lining. And that is just, number one, it's annoying, and number two, it's just very amateur. So I don't know why. I just completely forgot to use my pinking shears. I used my pinking shears on this fabric because I knew this was gonna fray, but for some reason I didn't use it on this fabric. One of the many issues I ran into making this coat was the thread on my machine kept snapping. I have been sewing ever since I was 18 years old. I have never once had thread snap while making something. And also the stitch pattern was all off, which I'm blaming on the fabric because I've never had that happen with any of my other fabrics. My gosh, this coat had so many issues. Another issue was that this coat is supposed to have a button and a buttonhole. As you can see, there are no buttons or buttonholes. And that is because, again, because of this fabric, the process in making a buttonhole was just ruining like a particular spot of the coat. And because I didn't want like a visible blemish on the outside of the coat, I just didn't add a button or a buttonhole. I have no idea why there were so many issues with this coat. The only probable cause that I can think of that caused these issues was the nap of the coat. Maybe my thread was getting tangled with the nap of the coat, and as it was like going under the presser foot, it would just cause my thread to snap, get tangled, and make these knots. It was just a mess. It was a mess. It was a mess. I'm taking this coat off, not only because it's bad, but also because I'm very, very hot. Now, we cannot forget the main goal of this project. The inspiration for this entire outfit was the Gucci perfume, which, by the way, is not sponsored. Gucci is not sponsoring me. And whether or not this is something that Gucci would make today or at any point in the fashion house's history, and if this outfit is giving 80s. Personally, as someone that was not born in the 80s, I feel like this is reading 80s. The puff sleeve, the high-waisted pant, the cut of the pant, I feel like is kind of giving 80s. I also did my makeup to look a bit 80s. Does this look 80s? Am I an 80s librarian? Now the more important question is this giving Gucci? In my opinion, yes, but also no. Most of the information in my voiceover throughout this entire video came from this book by Karen Homer called Little Book of Gucci, The Story of the Iconic Fashion House. This book has pictures in it to give you examples of what the styling was throughout the different decades of Gucci. And as I was reading it and looking at the pictures, I thought I was way off with my design until I came across Alessandro Michele? That is until I got to the Alessandro Michele portion of the book, where his style is a bit more eccentric. And I feel like this is pretty eccentric. I mean, he'd probably be more exaggerated with his design, but I think this is close. So is this giving Gucci? Kinda. Because I feel like this would be seen in a runway designed by Alessandro Michele. I mean, he'd probably add a lot more detail to this, but you know, it's kind of there. The only thing about this entire outfit that I feel like Gucci would actually produce is this belt, which is supposed to resemble the horsebit belt, which was one of the few accessories that they started making when they started to become a household name. I got this off of Amazon. I did not buy this. This is not an authentic Gucci horsebit belt. I do not have the money for that. As a reminder, I am a college student and I am broke, and that would not be a good investment. So, was the first episode of me designing clothes for fashion houses without doing any research successful? Yes. Despite the many issues that I ran into making this outfit, more so the coat than anything else, I would say this whole thing was a success. I've decided to make this a series on my channel because there are a lot of fashion houses out there, and there are also a lot of designers out there. So that means a lot of content. So this is just episode 1 of me making an original outfit that is inspired by an existing fashion house but without doing any research. Also, as for this coat, I am too embarrassed to wear this outside, so this will probably never see the light of day. And you won't know who I'll design next unless you subscribe and like this video. And if you have any suggestions of other fashion houses, because I have a list of them, but maybe there are some that I missed, you can leave them down in the comments and I can add them to the list. Or I could post a community vote and you guys can vote on which fashion house I do next. I already have the first 3 picked out.
Wait a minute, hold on.
So I'm gonna do those first, and maybe after that you guys can decide. Anyways, thanks for watching and see you next time.